Hello, and welcome to this manipulation of decimals series of videos. This lesson, we're going to be looking at dividing decimals. So let's jump right in. So there's going to be two parts to this lesson. The first part is dividing a decimal, and the second part is going to be dividing by a decimal. Okay, so first up is dividing a decimal. So here we've got three examples, and you can see we've got, for the first example, we've got 12.4, which is a decimal number, divided by 4, okay? Now, when we're dividing a decimal number, we don't do anything different to the normal bus stop method, which I've put a link to in the video down below, okay? So 12.4 divided by 4. Well, just like our normal bus stop method, I'm going to write the divisor first, and the dividend inside the bus stop. And then I'm going to ask myself, how many 4s are in 12.4? Well, how many 4s are in 1? Well, there's no 4s in 1 because it's too big. Carry the remainder 1. How many 4s are in 12? There are 3 4s in 12, and there's no remainder. Now, be careful here. As we can see, in the 12.4 in the bus stop, we've got a decimal place between the 2 and the 4. We need to make sure there is a decimal place in the same position above the bus stop, okay? So this means when we get our final answer, the decimal point will be in the right place. And the final bit there, how many 4s are in 4? Well, there is 1 4 in 4. And there's my answer there, 3.1. So 12.4 divided by 4 is 3.1. What about the second one? 61.8 divided by 3. Again, we're just going to do our normal bus stop method. So the 3 goes on the outside and 61.8 goes on the inside. So how many 3s are in 6? Well, there's 2 3s in 6. How many 3s are in 1? Well, 3 is too big to go into 1. So we're going to have a remainder 1, which is going to go by the 8. Remember to put that decimal point in. Now, how many 3s are in 18? Well, there are 6 3s in 18. So the answer to 61.8 divided by 3 is 20.6. Last one now. 56.3 divided by 5. Once again, write the 5 outside of the bus stop. And the 56.3 goes inside the bus stop. So how many 5s in 5? Well, there's 1 5 in 5, and there's no remainders. How many 5s in 6? There's 1 5 in 6, and there's a remainder of 1. Remember to put that decimal point in. Now, how many 5s are in 13? Well, there's 2, and there's going to be a remainder 3. Now, there's currently not a number here, but after the decimal point, if you need to put in a new number in for the remainder, it will always be a 0. Okay? So now, how many 5s are in 30? There are 6 5s in 30. So the final answer to my question, 56.3 divided by 5 is 11.26. So those are the first three examples on dividing a decimal, okay? So here comes your first main task. So pause the video and have a go at these questions. Remember to use the bus stop method for all of these. Best of luck. Okay, and here are the answers. Now let's look at the second part of the lesson. So now this is dividing by a decimal. Now, as you can see here, the difference between this and last couple of examples was we are dividing a whole number by a decimal. So the second number in this question is a decimal, okay? So how are we going to do this? 6 divided by 0.3. Well, first of all, we're going to write 6 divided by 0.3 as a fraction, okay? Because remember, division is just another way of writing a fraction. So I'm going to have 6 over 0.3. Now remember, we're able to do this because division is another way. Writing things as a fraction is the same as a division. We're basically saying what is 6 divided by 0.3, okay? Now, this still doesn't really help me with the answer, but I can use the rules of equivalent fractions to make a much easier question for myself. So rather than dividing by 0.3, it'd be much easier if we could divide by a whole number. And the quickest way to change a decimal into a whole number is by multiplying it by 10. So if I multiply 0.3 by 10, I get 3. Now, to keep this as an equivalent fraction, whatever I do to the bottom number, I have to do to the top. So if I've times the bottom number by 10, I have to do the same to the top number. So 6 times 10 is 60. Now, this is a much easier question to solve, okay? Essentially, what I'm trying to answer here is what is 60 divided by 3? So over here, I'm trying to find 60 divided by 3. Just make a little note over here. 60 divided by 3. That's what I'm trying to find out. So I'm going to use the bus stop method for this now. So remember, the 3 goes outside the bus stop. 60 goes inside. How many 3s are in 6? There's 2. There's no remainders. And there's no 3s in 0. And we leave it as that. There's no remainders left there. So we leave our answer as 20. So that means because 60 divided by 3 is 20, because all of these are equal, that means the final answer to our question is 20. 6 divided by 0.3 is 20, okay? Because these are all equivalent fractions. And by finding the answer to 60 divided by 3, we found the answer to 6 divided by 0.3, okay? Let's have a look at another example. 24 times 0.4. So once again, I'm going to write this as a fraction. 24 divided by 0.4. Now, once again, I don't like this 0.4, so I'm going to change it to a whole number by multiplying it by 10. By doing that, I change 0.4 into 4. Now remember, I have to do the same to the top number, so times that by 10 as well. I get 240. Now this looks a bit nicer to solve. So for the bus stop, I'm going to be solving what is 240 divided by 4. So 4 goes on the outside, 240 goes underneath. How many 4s are in 2? None, because it's too big. Carry the 2. How many 4s in 24? Well, there's 6. And then there's no 4s in 0 and no remainders. So 240 divided by 4 is 60. And that is also the answer to our original question, because 240 divided by 4 is the same as 24 divided by 0.4. Now, one more now. Now, notice here I've got 52.5 divided by 0.5. So we're dividing a decimal by a decimal, okay? Now, you might be thinking, last example, we just had to do the bus stop method. But if you're dividing by a decimal, we have to use this equivalent fraction method, okay? This takes priority. So let's write this out as a fraction. 52.5 divided by 0.5, okay? Now I need to change these into nicer numbers. So I'm going to change 0.5 by multiplying it by 10. And that gives me 5. And I have to change the top number as well, because whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So I end up with 525. Now that's quite handy, because now it's turned both of them into whole numbers, into integers, okay? So now all I have to find the answer to is what is 525 divided by 5. Good old trusty bus stop method. So how many 5s are in 5? There's 1. How many 5s are in 2? There's none. Remainder 2. How many 5s in 25? There are 5. So 525 divided by 5 is 105. And because we got that using equivalent fractions, the answer to our original question, 52.5 divided by 0.5 is also 105, okay? Because they're all equal, okay? So let's have a look at the main task. Okay, so pause the video and have a go at these division questions. Remember, because we're dividing by a decimal, we have to use equivalent fractions first to find an easier division question, which we can use the bus stop on, okay? And then the answer to that will be the same as the answer to our original question. So pause the video and have a go with these. Best of luck. Okay, here are the answers. Now let's have a look at the checking question now. So 6.2 divided by 0.4, okay? So pause the video and have a go at this final question, and then we're all going to go through it together. Best of luck. Okay, so 6.2 divided by 0.4. Well, I'm dividing by a decimal here, okay? So I already should be thinking I need to be turning this into a fraction and then finding an easier equivalent fraction to solve, okay? So 6.2 divided by 0.4. Well, I don't like those numbers at all. So I'm going to multiply 0.4 by 10, which will give me 4. I have to do the same to the top number to keep it equivalent, which is 62. Now this looks a bit better now. So the question I'm going to be solving is 62 divided by 4. So here we go with the bus stop. I got my 4, I got my 62. How many 4s are in 6? Well, there is 1, remainder 2. How many 4s are in 22? There is 5 4s in 22, but there's going to be a remainder 2, okay? Remember, after the decimal point, we use zeros. Make sure you've got a decimal point on top and bottom here for this bus stop now. And then finally, how many 4s are in 20? There are 5 4s in 20. Okay, so our final answer to this checking question, 6.2 divided by 0.4 is 15.5. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next lesson. Bye now.